Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda.
Hare Krishna. Here we are, Bhagavad-gita. Here it is. We are reading this Bhagavad-gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And my name is Latika. We are reading the third chapter, Karma Yoga. And the Bhagavad-gita starts, of course, with a situation where Arjuna and Krishna, they are on a battlefield, and Arjuna becomes a little despondent, a little confused. What is he actually doing there? And he asks Krishna some questions, and Krishna describes the nature of the soul and activities in Krishna consciousness in the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Then Arjuna asks Krishna, but if you are saying that knowledge is good and spiritual life is important, then why do I have to do these activities on a battlefield? These ghastly activities. So the third chapter here is about activity. So we are reading text 21. Yad yada charati shresthas tad evetaro janaha sayat pramanam kurute lokastad anuvartate. And if you are studying Bhagavad Gita in this very systematic and dedicated way, this is one of the key verses that we sometimes learn by heart. It's a useful verse. So if that's the way you study, then this is one of the verses you want to learn. Whatever action a great man performs, common men follow, and whatever standards he set by exemplary acts, all the world pursues. Purport. People in general always require a leader who can teach the public by practical behavior. A leader cannot teach the public to stop smoking if he himself smokes. Lord Chaitanya said that a teacher should behave properly before he begins teaching. One who teaches in that way is called Acharya, or the ideal teacher. Therefore, a teacher must follow the principles of Shastra, scriptures, to teach the common man. The teacher cannot manufacture rules against the principles of revealed scriptures. Yes, so we also know that in ordinary life, if we are teachers or parents and we deal with children, they will do as we do, not as we say. So if we tell them, this example here of smoking is quite apt example. If a doctor says you can't smoke, it's not good for your health. If the parent says you can't smoke, but the child notices every time the parent wants to relax or be happy, they take out their cigarettes, then that's what is going to make the impression on that child. And similarly, in life, in society, we're speaking of leaders. And of course, some leaders are appointed leaders and some leaders are more informal leaders. But to be a leader, you can't expect any follower to just do what you tell them. They need to be able to take inspiration from your own example, from your own activities. And Krishna is telling Arjuna that Arjuna may very well be a very spiritually minded person and may be able to give up his duties in accordance to his social position as a kshatriya and transfer himself into a position of meditating on Krishna. Maybe he will be able to do it, maybe he will not. Krishna is not very enthusiastic about the prospect. And here he's giving another argument for activity. What about everybody else? We all heard that when we were little and we wanted to do something foolish and our parents said no, and then we said, but everybody else gets to do that. And our parents say, what if everybody else jumped off a bridge? Would you jump off a bridge? No, I wouldn't jump off the bridge. But of course, your parents, they didn't jump off the bridge because they wanted to show by example to do the good things. And here in the society, you have some brahmanas, and they are like the head of society, they are giving knowledge. And you have some kshatriyas, and they are the protectors of society. And they are like the kings or the soldiers or the policemen. They are administrators, but also enforcers of the principles that are guiding society. And especially in the Vedic times, maybe a lot less nowadays, but people in general would respect their leaders and look up to them because they did their job. They didn't just create some very negative situation. They created a society where everybody could live, and by their own example they showed that they were not just sitting behind their desks and making laws and sending the young men out in wars while they stayed comfortable. No, Arjuna is supposed to step out on the battlefield to show an example that I will do my duty, and that will show people in general that they can trust their leader, and therefore they will be encouraged to do their own duty. And so the teacher cannot manufacture rules against the principles of revealed scriptures. The revealed scriptures, like Manu Samhita and similar others, are considered the standard books to be followed by human society. Thus the leader's teachings should be based on the principles of such standard shastras. One who desires to improve himself must follow the standard rules as they are practiced by the great teachers. The Srimad Bhagavatam also affirms that one should follow in the footsteps of great devotees, and that is the way of progress on the path of spiritual realization. The king or the executive head of state, the father and the school teacher are all considered to be natural leaders of the innocent people in general. All such natural leaders have a great responsibility to their dependents. Therefore, they must be conversant with standard books of moral and spiritual codes. So we have this principle of a servant leader. You're not supposed to become a leader because you want to be able to control people, you want to become famous, you want to amass riches. Those are not the right motivations for a leader. A leader, here it's explained that he should first behave properly. So achar and prachar. Achar means what you do and prachar means what you say. So maybe you have all kinds of knowledge and in the form of information, but if you don't have the character or the right way of behaving yourself, then you won't be very effective, and you don't really have the right to take that position, because a leader is really a servant. A good leader is caring about those he will lead, and in some situations you don't really need a leader. Between friends or in a small group, you can cooperate, you can do things together, but in general we do see that we require the kind of inspiration that we get from a person who is an example, who is an exemplary person. And Krishna wants Arjuna to be an exemplary person. Also, when Srila Prabhupada came to the West, he was starting this Krishna consciousness movement, and he was giving this knowledge, he was giving this culture, he was giving this process of Krishna consciousness. But he didn't just sit somewhere and and get paid to give speeches to tell other people what to do. He was showing by example that Krishna consciousness is a very nice thing. Therefore, he was doing Krishna consciousness. He came here as a teacher, and he was telling his students that according to the Vedic principles, in spiritual life you need to follow a spiritual master. And he showed the example by being a student and following his own spiritual master. So in that way, both for Arjuna and both for us, when we start to practice Krishna consciousness, in a way we're actually also showing an example to people around us. And also when we are looking for our own teachers, when we are looking for whom to follow, we don't just look at how learned they are or how famous they are or how many followers they have. We look at their character, we look at their behavior, because this is a very natural principle. So that's Bhagavad-gita. It gives us knowledge, practical knowledge, spiritual knowledge, and also sometimes it's not that these are some religious teachings that we haven't heard about. Sometimes we can also see this is just common sense, really. I will read one more text here, 22. Name parthasti kartavyang trishu lokeshu kinchana nanavaptam avaptavyang varta eva chakarmani. O son of Pritha, there is no work prescribed for me within all the 3 planetary systems, nor am I in want of anything, nor have I a need to obtain anything, and yet I am engaged in prescribed duties. This is Krishna speaking. Purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is described in the Vedic literature as follows. Tam Ishvaranam Paramang Maheshwarang Tang Devatanang Paramang Cha Devatam Pating Patinam Paramang Parastad Vidama Devang Bhuvaneshamidyam Natasya Karyang Karanang Cha Vidyate Natat Samascha Bihyadhikascha Drishyate Parasya Shaktir Vividhaiva Shruyate Svabhavaki Jnana Balakriyacha. The Supreme Lord is the controller of all other controllers, and he is the greatest of all the diverse planetary leaders. Everyone is under his control. All entities are delegated with particular power only by the Supreme Lord. They are not supreme themselves. He is also worshipable by all demigods and is the supreme director of all directors. Therefore, he is transcendental to all kinds of material leaders and controllers and is worshipable by all. There is no one greater than him, and he is the supreme cause of all causes. He does not possess a bodily form like that of an ordinary living entity. There is no difference between his body and his soul. He is absolute. All his senses are transcendental. Any one of his senses can perform the actions of any other sense. Therefore, no one is greater than him or equal to him. His potencies are multifarious, and thus his deeds are automatically performed as a natural sequence. Shvetashvatara Upanishad 6, 7-8. Yes, that's our Bhagavad-gita. Bhagavad-gita is very much the beginning of spiritual life and spiritual knowledge. But Srila Prabhupada and the previous acharyas, they add a lot of information from the rest of the Vedic knowledge resources. Here is Svetashvatara Upanishad. We hear about Krishna, we hear about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and it's not just a very vague belief in something powerful. Often today people are not so inclined to belong to a specific religion or to accept a specific faith, but they become somewhat privately religious. They believe in something. And that's very nice. That shows that there is some intelligence, that we can see there is something. But we would also like to know a little bit more. What is this something? We hear about God, we hear about Krishna, and then the scriptures have this information. We can see, we can compare. In India, it's not uncommon that people come up and claim to be incarnations of God. Then we can check them against these Vedic scriptures. So are they really the controllers of all controllers, or the greatest of the planetary leaders? Are everyone under their control? In general, we can say no. Krishna has these qualities, Vishnu has these qualities. Since everything is in full opulence in the personality of Godhead, it is existing in full truth, there is no duty for the Supreme Personality of Godhead to perform. One who must receive the results of work has some designated duty, but one who has nothing to achieve within the 3 planetary systems certainly has no duty. And yet Lord Krishna is engaged on the battlefield of Kurukshetra as the leader of the Kshatriyas, because the Kshatriyas are duty-bound to give protection to the distressed. Although he is above all the regulations of the revealed scriptures, he does not do anything that violates the revealed scriptures. So here we see Krishna is showing an example. We see that in his life. Sometimes he's showing an example, and sometimes he's doing whatever he wants because he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Supreme Enjoyer. And it's his position to do whatever he wants, and it's our position to assist him in that. But some of the things we see he acts according to the structure in society to show a good example, so that people in general will not be misled by his example. And he's giving this same impetus to Arjuna as he continues in the next text, 23. Yadi yahang navarte yang jatu karman yatandriyaha mama vart manuvartante manushya parta sarvashaha. For if I ever fail to engage in carefully performing prescribed duties, O Partha, certainly all men would follow my path. Purport. In order to keep the balance of social tranquility for progress in spiritual life, there are traditional family usages meant for every civilized man. Although such rules and regulations are for the conditioned souls and not Lord Krishna, because he descended to establish the principles of religion, he followed the prescribed rules. Otherwise, common men would follow in his footsteps because he is the greatest authority. From the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is understood that Lord Krishna was performing all the religious duties at home and out of home as required of a householder. So that is one aspect of spiritual life. Of course, in general, we take to spiritual life from a more of an existential point of view. We look around in the world and we don't find any other meaning than searching for the absolute truth and searching for the meaning of life. But Bhakti Yoga is actually a very practical thing. It is not just your individual thing, although that's where it starts, of course. But gradually, maybe somebody already has a position of leadership in society, being an example, or somebody may come to that position after practicing spiritual life for a long time. People around them will start to look up to them for an example and for guidance. So yes, Krishna is giving those instructions also. And Krishna is actually in Bhagavad-gita being very thorough. Whenever a point comes up, whenever a question comes up, Krishna is covering it from all angles. So activities, we can understand it as karma, which means every activity in this world has a resultant reaction. We can understand it in connection to our service to Krishna in this world. We can understand it as this karma yoga, the principle of balancing our karmas in order to take the next step. We can understand it that when we are engaged in Krishna's service, we are beyond those particular laws of karma. And here is one more aspect, that when we are acting in society, we're also giving an example to others. And that's a good reminder when we take to spiritual life, that it's not just for ourselves, it's also, of course, we are serving Krishna to please him, but it's also quite an important aspect, is that aspect that we want to reach out. We have found something very nice, we have found Krishna consciousness, but we want to make it available for others. And then of course we can go out and give Bhagavad-gita to people, and we can tell them about Bhagavad-gita, which I'm trying to do. But that also means we have to kind of straighten ourselves out and become that person that shows an example of Krishna consciousness. So the good thing is that Krishna consciousness is such a nice thing that this will only be a plus. It will only be another impetus to do the best possible thing with our lives. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you for watching. We aim for updates every Tuesday and Friday. Please come back. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them down there. We also have some links and information for you. And there is, of course, the subscribe button. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
I'm a Hare Krishna, and I approve this message. Subscribe.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama.